Leonidas.
Indeed.
What brought on this sudden interest in predictions?
Hey, you'll see today on That's Life, we'll meet a truly remarkable astrologer and mystic. His name is Robin Armstrong.
The unique instrument you see here took 8 years to build. It is very much a reflection of the life and personality of its builder. He's the man playing it. He is astrologer Robin Armstrong. We're standing in a place where astrology and music meet. Robin Armstrong, tell me what, this is something you've made. Tell me what it is.
Well, it is an expression of astrology and in mathematical terms. It's very Pythagorean in essence. It's what I call a celestial harp. It's a musical instrument, it's a harp. Has 72 strings on it. It's designed to play a person's horoscope, or to play a season, or to play the positions of the planets in the nature. So you could play a time, like I could play 1984 for you. The shape itself is based on the pyramid. There's a square bridge that moves around, and this is actually the pyramid. So the middle of the squares point east, west, north, and south. The apex is in the center, and the apex is symbolized by the sun. And from the sun, the earth trails behind it, makes a spiral trail behind it. And this is the path of the earth for 1 year following the sun.
And somehow the sounds that you would be playing for someone would be sympathetic if they were in their chart.
That's right.
Robin Armstrong wasn't always an astrologer. He grew up in Montreal and started college to study science. But the life of the 60s beckoned, and he dropped out to travel North America, visiting coffee houses and reading his own poetry. What were you saying in your poetry? Were you writing about yourself or about the world?
It was very, I think it was very cross between many of the contemporary beatnik poets and Dylan, and it was sort of folk music, but very symbolic and I think angry in many ways. But there was a current of mysticism within it even then.
Something took you from that to India, where you've told me you spent 13 months in complete silence.
Yes, in a black room without sunlight or seeing anybody. But the idea was that before you can begin to learn spiritual or inner development, you have to unlearn all the wrong things that you have in your mind. By being alone and coming to terms with your own imagination, you have to face yourself. The idea, they say in India that 21 days in a black room like this is the equivalent of a death and rebirth. Your consciousness changes so much in 21 days alone like that, that when you come back into the affairs of the world, you're a newly born person. Like the first 98 days that I went into the room, I went from about 130 down to 65 pounds. And I felt great. Everyone thought the wind was going to blow me over, but I felt great. Then I went in again after about a month into another one of these rooms, and by the time I came out, I figured I'd spent 6 or 7 months in the room. It turned out that it was 13 months. Since then, I think my whole life has been based on trying to understand what happened and get a perspective on it.
Robin, how do you go from the mystical experience of being in a black room in India to becoming an astrologer?
There was a period where visions finally started coming through, and I didn't sleep for 50 days. Just my mind kept opening. It was going off like fireworks. And all the symbols that came down, I didn't know was astrology at the time, but in trying to understand these symbols and what they meant and make them valid, it led me into astrology. And then it began to explain the workings of nature. It's not a weird occult thing. Astrology is simply nature and how we're related to it. See, astrology explains how we're interwoven in our relationship to the world around us, to ourselves, and to each other. But in knowing astrology, you have to know there's times to be active, there's times to understand. When you're changing from a period of creative action to a period of being receptive, you have to make a major adjustment in your lifestyle and your priorities, so that if we knew when to change, we would probably solve most of the stress and tension-oriented problems in our life.
You use astrology to predict the future. How can an individual predict the future?
Well, it's like music. There's the movement of nature, of the seasons, of the sun, of the planets, and you can see the crisis times, just like if you're playing Beethoven's Fifth and you hear a da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da, and it stops, you know something's missing. You know that last da is bound to come in. So it's the same type of thing with history. Wars, disruptions, earthquakes come at very definite intervals, and these are capable of being determined. It's nature.
Can you explain to me in scientific terms how astrology works?
We're born with a certain vitality or aura or magnetic field around us. That is totally conditioned by the magnetic field around the Earth at that time, based on our prejudiced place on the Earth and point in time, like where our perspective to it. The magnetic field of Earth, which conditions that or influences it, is completely made up of the magnetic field of the planets in the solar system. It creates an electromagnet. And the Earth's bias to the rest of the solar system or solar family creates the unique magnetic field for Earth. So we're a mirror image of the Earth's magnetic field. The Earth is a mirror image of its relationship to the solar system to the galaxy, and so on. It's E equals mc squared. Everything is related. Einstein's theory of relativity is simply an affirmation of astrology, that we are responsible to nature. We are part of it.
Join us tomorrow night. We'll be back with Robin Armstrong, and Robin will be making some predictions about the world and its future, about Canada and its future, about the United States. So be with us then.
Coming up, In the Ring with Tony Unitas.